What's up guys, welcome to today's video. I know that there's been a little bit less progress than we'd probably like to see on the red giveaway chaser, and I'm about to tell you why. Sean was pulling the pan to reseal it and we found some aluminum material in there. At first it kind of looked like maybe part of a piston or something, but what it turned out to be, the thrust washer was actually in there jiggling around. So the crank ate the thrust washer, and if you look, you can see what the crank's supposed to look like and then all the hot spots on this side of the crank. Now, I know that this is, I don't want to say a common thing, but with improper clutch installation, this has happened before. Johan, could you explain any better than me what would cause a thrust washer to spin or basically disintegrate like this?
So it normally is a clutch, like a heavy duty pressure plate would do this. So a lot of like old school Supra owners would disconnect the clutch switch and bypass it, so that when they're starting the car, they don't have to press the clutch in. And engaging the clutch in will push the crank forward, and that's called crank walk. Doing that would save the motor from destroying a thrust washer. In this case, this engine had a stock style clutch, so it could be just somebody open it up, slap bearings together, and then install that and then screw it up. So it's hard to tell, but that's pretty much what you get out of it. The main problem with heavy duty pressure plates is that you get crank walk. Engine has crank walk regardless. There's a different specification for it, but SS crank walk would have caused that.
It's a common Evo issue too. I think with like some older DSMs, where I know a lot of I think like Evo 3s and 4s end up getting crank walk from a similar thing. But anyway, it just turned into one of those things where, to meet the timeline, because this giveaway is going to be over by the end of the month, there just wasn't time to go and get the motor taken to a machine shop and to be done right. So we bought another engine. It's just another VVTi 1J. It sucks because they're so expensive now compared to what they used to be. I thought about throwing a 2J in the car, but it just didn't make sense timeline-wise with the parts that we have. And if you look, we already have a bunch of shiny new parts from Mike Miller over at New JDM. Which is nice since we didn't waste time mounting them to the other engine. I'm just glad that Sean pulled the pan and found this, because it would have sucked if this came up after the fact. So different motors going in the car, but it'll be a better one. Got a nice golden color.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We are sealing this 1J up. So right here we have a 1J BBTI seal kit. You can't see the part number, but that's it right there. So pretty much in the compound, in our shop, every JC build, we get a seal kit for. We then replace all the necessary seals. It comes with everything you will need to reseal the whole engine. Rear main, front main seal, cam seals, etc. It has everything. So we're doing an oil pan right now. The oil pan has a combination of both an O-ring, which goes through the block. You place that O-ring there, and then the rest is RTV. RTV goes all around the oil pan. On this area, the bolt is on the outside of the engine, so you will RTV inside. But on this spot here, the bolts that bolted to the block, you will RTV on the outside, and then RTV on here, and that's it, and around. So you do that for the whole oil pan. Now, when you flip this over and you get the oil pan on the car, on the motor, the kit also comes with an oil pickup gasket that goes right here. It comes with everything necessary to seal the whole engine, but this is how we seal the oil pan. We don't do anything different than Toyota, but yeah, we'll show you exactly how. We don't use OEM sealers. We just use Permatex brand. There's different kinds we use, but for the oil pan, we just use the gray stuff. It works. That's why we use pretty much any engine that we seal. It works really good. So, and then just start dropping. On this one back here, I go around the back because that bolt is external and it will leak if you do it just on the front. So now we got the O-ring in. We make sure that the whole surface is clean. We slap the oil pan on. Now it's very important that this O-ring is in. Don't fill it with RTV. That's the oil pickup. If you fill it with RTV, you're gonna have a chance of RTV being sucked into the system, and then, yeah, creating yourself a problem. The way I do this, I use 2 of the studs that are there to help me guide it, and then just drop it. There's 2 dowel pins in the back in this location, and then you just pop it in and put all this hardware in place. Alright, so we got the oil pan on. We have the baffle or the stock OEM baffle in, and then the oil pickup. The next step is make sure you got your fresh new gasket in place. We don't use RTV on that. Put that on there. Then you go oil pickup, make sure it's clean. And then slides on like that, it goes like that. Getting to the front of the engine, we replace all the seals. Cam seals for 1JC BBTI are different from the 2J, so make sure if you're not getting the complete 1J BBTI head gasket kit that you specifically buy the 1J seals for the cams. We replace the front main seal, we got a new tensioner. But before we get to the timing belt stuff, the first thing you should always do is replace this O-ring, which comes in that kit as well, and then you bolt on the water pump. Slide on the water pump, making sure that seal stay intact. Always make sure you put all the bolts that go in on the water pump first before you tighten it, because sometimes you will forget to get to this one down here, and if you put all the rest of them on, this one won't line up. So it's always crucial to put all of them before you tighten it, and then you go ahead and torque them to spec.
This beautiful piece of metal here was made by our buddy Tyler over at Odyssey Fab. I actually met him when I brought my white Chaser to him, and he did not only the manifold, but he also did like the full exhaust setup on that car. Really talented. Odyssey Fab makes a lot of really cool parts for the JZX. We have them in stock at Drift HQ. We have, I want to say, about 10 of these manifolds that he's making for us to have on the shelf at Drift HQ. So if you want to reserve one, send an email to sales@drifthq.com, because I can guarantee you they're going to go fast. Pretty cool. They've got a billet flange, all stainless, beautiful, TIG welded here in the USA. He's a Florida boy as well, so always cool to support him. What turbo are we going to be using on this setup? This is the G3660. I'm trying to mimic as much of this setup from the yellow car that we've had a bunch of testing with as possible. The G25 was sick on the 1J, but it just made too much torque for stock rods, and on pump gas it wouldn't really be the greatest. Where this turbo should net us safely around 400 wheel on pump gas, and then on ethanol could turn it up to the moon. But yeah, looks sick. I'm stoked to see this thing in the car. And then the homie Mike Miller came through from New JDM and got the stock intake manifold all vapor honed and all the little accessories and bits zinc coated. I wish there was enough time on this project to get every nut and bolt zinc plated, but he did come through on a ridiculous timeline. I think he fully restored this entire setup in like a day or two. I overnighted him the parts, he overnights them back, and to like send out a crusty looking intake manifold and get this back,
Crazy.
like, this will make all of the difference in the engine bay, because it's just such a pain in the ass to do that usually on 1Js and stuff people like spray paint them or whatever and it looks decent, but this is gonna make the thing look brand new.
Johan's better.
Little better. It was suck. It was worse than COVID, I will say. But I appreciate everybody that sent messages or reached out on Instagram. I am doing better, so now we're just back at the Supra. Hopefully we could get the mounts done. So pretty much what you've seen so far. I got the front end off. You did see us remove the oil coolers or the heat exchanger radiators, which I believe are the ones to the side of the bumper.
Yeah.
We're no longer going to run oil coolers on there. One, if something happens and Adam hits, it will destroy the oil cooler because the OEM crash bar doesn't completely come out of in front of the oil cooler. Even though the oil cooler cage is built out of steel, it still wouldn't be sufficient enough to like anything bad from happening. So we're just gonna delete those, put a big oil cooler in the center, keep all the front of the tire clear. So now I got the front end off. We're gonna put the oil pan on. That's gonna go on this engine, and then we can mock up the motor end. I did remove the rack and pinion because it does sit a little too high. So I want to get the better clearance and play with the room that I have, so that the motor is sitting at a good angle and not leaning back or forth if we go avoid that. Yeah, so we're bolting this on now. There's still components missing to this system, but this will get us to the point where we could make the mounts for the engine, start building from there. We're gonna remove all the front end stuff and do the Wi-Fi stuff, but this at least will get us to the point to have a better timeline of the build. And then if we need to order anything that's missing or we need to change plans because of something we find along the way, then we have time to do that.
All right, so we're about to get our first look at our ITB setup for the four rotor. We've actually had this for a while, straight out of Australia, EFI hardware, custom, and some peanuts. Let's go, baby. Look, you know it's legit when it comes in a freaking wood box.
Peanuts, bro. This is the intake that goes back.
Bob! EFI just means electric fuel injection.
Get
Yeah, we have electric fuel injection on this motor, Sean.
No, we're using
Yeah, it's carbureted. Four
600
carbs. Damn, I love that it already comes assembled. This thing.
Damn.
This thing looks gangster. It's already got the fuel rails installed too. Got 8 injectors on this. Look at that. I'm gonna go vroom. So if you guys remember the way that Vargas put this together, we're basically gonna have V-band clamps for the intake setup. So these boys will go in here. Now Johan is gonna be deciding where that's gonna go, and then he'll make basically a little bend that goes up from here to here. I mean, that'll give us quite a
Damn,
room.
that's gonna look sick.
How would it look straight up? I know that would be optimal. The only thing that's cool about that is then you get to see like the top of the, like I wanted to see how many accessories and how much gonna be on top of it, because I love just looking at the keg.
Right.
Because it looks so low, but then when you stick the intake over it, it doesn't look as crazy. But you'll show off your header. The more you move this up, the more you'll be able to see the header.
Right.
Kind of at a standstill with the four rotor for now. You can see Johan kind of has like a 2x4 wedged in here to simulate what the steering rack would be, but we're going to wait until we get the steering rack adapter kit from WiseFab. They make it so you can run like an E90 rack instead of the electric rack that comes in these cars, and I think it will actually give us a lot more clearance than a 2x4 would. I think it's only going to stick up maybe like a third of a 2x4. So before Johan makes them out, obviously we want to get the engine at the most optimal angle possible. Right now it's a little tilted back. So I think we'll have that in the next couple days, and then progress on this can resume. Vargas is also coming down soon with our dry sump front cover setup. This is obviously just a mock-up for now, and this thing's going to start to come together. Also, look how cool this looks. I never took the filter off on these ITBs. I should have showed you guys this because this is the coolest looking thing ever. Bah! So sick. I got my first trumpets. I'm joining a band, Mom. We don't around here at LZMFG. Hey, maybe this guy does. The car came with a Mark III transmission, R154. It's not the tripod style. It works, it's okay. I never mentioned it in the video because we were planning to change it. What you guys are gonna get in the giveaway card that you're gonna win by spending $5 and getting entries on LZMFG.com is a chaser with a brand new R154 straight out of Japan. This is the tripod style, so you'll be shifting like a gangster. I'm not gonna lie, this transmission was actually supposed to be for my white chaser. I've got an old one in my car, but I want this car to be the best it possibly can be. And now through Drift HQ, we have a lead on getting more of these new ones. So I'm not worried about my white car. And if you guys are looking for a brand new R154 to manual swap your JZX100, hit us up, sales@drifthq.com. These things are hard to get, but we got a source. We can make it happen for you. Also, just to add, I've now at this point experienced a CD in a chaser. I've played around with a ZF, not in a chaser, and I've had a V160 in a chaser. And my favorite transmission in the JZX100 is the transmission that it came with, the R154. And people about like how much power they can make with it. I've abused the crap out of a 500 plus torque JZX100 with the yellow drift car for probably like 2 or 3 years now, no issues. And then the white car is making over 700 horsepower, and I think around similar torque, still no issues. But a lot of it just comes down to the clutch you use and how you drive it. You gotta have some mechanical sympathy. If you're like clutch dumping in 3rd gear at high RPM, it's probably not gonna be happy. But if you drive it nice, they shift like butter, and it just feels right, and the shifter's right where it needs to be. 32 dialed in. One of which is what I'm doing right now, and it's replacing the carrier bearing for the drive shaft. I want to try to keep a 2-piece drive shaft in this car just because it drives so nice and smooth and doesn't make like any drivetrain noise, so it'd be sick if I can make it work. Gotta do that. Gotta dial in the AC system, and then I gotta install the new radium fuel system. From there, then when Jamie's down, we can retune it, turn the boost up a little bit, and continue to enjoy this car. It's gonna super full. With that.
Nut.
I think that's part of the problem.
I would say so.
I don't know what I'm looking at, but
It's all dry rot and cracked, and
this is a full pump.
that's a full pump.
The question is, how do you get it out? This is the.
They're a big nut in here. Take nut out,
Oh,
front come off.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Big nut.
Big nut guy.
Hooray!
Yeah, she a oval.
Yeah, it's pretty like worn out and tired. We got a new girl over here. Blah, blah, blah.
Not an oval.
Not an oval. In case you're wondering too, the indicator of me doing this is a small vibration under acceleration, and I know that I don't have any like play in my wheels or anything, and that's how I was able to assess that it's the carrier bearing. But now I don't know what I'm going to be able to use to get in there. Ideally, I would have a socket that would fit around it. This is some BMX for me. When you're putting the bearing, you don't want to tap it on the race, so thankfully I had a piece of pipe that's perfect. And I'll use this to guide the bearing in. I'd like to imagine the nut's going to pull it in the rest. I was like, yo, the bearing doesn't turn. Put an engine in that. It's easy. Put a new carrier bearing in.
Look at this
Man, dude.
You passed.
Hell yeah.
How bad was the other one?
Bad. Real
Bad?
bad. The guy would accelerate, and then
Not like you took it off. It was like clean.
oh, it was floppy, dude. All right, so to kind of wrap this thing up, we're waiting on a few little things to start it, mainly the downpipe. Tyler from Odyssey Fab is going to be offering like a hot pipes kit that would come with a downpipe and a dump pipe, but since we don't have it, the boys are just finding time on other stuff. But the plan is to start the car and run it for a bit on stock ECU. Cool thing is, if you guys remember on my White Chaser forever ago, you can run a stock ECU and it'll compensate for fuel, usually on the richer side, until about like 10 or 12 pounds, depending on the turbo size. So it'll be a good way to break the car in, make sure the cooling system works, make sure that there's no leaks or anything like that, before throwing another variable with a standalone ECU and a bunch of extra fueling stuff. This car is going to be flex fuel on ethanol with an ECU Master standalone, but that will be the next stage. So the first stage is getting it running, back on the road with the new fresh motor and top mount G20, top mount G30, and all other fun stuff. So remember, this could be yours. Every $5 you spend gets you entered for a chance to win. LZMFG.com, more info in the description, and we're off to E-Town.
When you said,
What should we do with all this?
when you said, when you
Sean's a peanut expert. Wait, hold on. Sean's an expert with around here.
Sticky.